One of the most important relationship skills you can have is this ability to come out of your head, notice what's going on in front of you, and respond only to that.
In neurolinguistics, they say that 93% of communication is nonverbal. Only 7% is words.
So if I say to you, gee, I really like that shirt.
You were incongruent, meaning that what you see on your face does not match what you are saying. For the guy, sincerely, I do not mean anything I'm saying as a tactic. I mean it as a way to feel first and then handle things second. When I first learned this and got over having to yammer on in my head, I actually thought my brain broke.
I've spent a lot of time rescuing highly anxious dogs, and I've literally gotten down on the floor and you just be there. You let your energy talk for you. Talking makes it worse.
You just need to understand that you're supposed to be there. You're playing the part you're supposed to play.
So the $64 question is, how do you deal with a woman who's upset? Hi, today I have a very special guest. His name is Dobby, and we're going to use him to demonstrate a couple of really important points, aren't we, sweetheart? Yes, we are. So the thing is, when you're working with dogs, it's very important that you are not in your head, because, of course, he doesn't understand the words I'm saying. But he does understand energy, good smells, I know, yeah, that too. And most importantly, if I'm going to work with him, I have to be very, very observant. I have to be outside my head, in my senses, mainly my visual sense, okay? Because as we look at him now, first of all, he's relaxed, he's curious, and he's a little sleepy maybe, yes. His ears are down and relaxed, his eyes are calm and soft, and he's just curious, like, puppies are. And I'm not going to be able to hold him too awfully long. But the point is, if you're, okay, my puppy wrangler, goodbye, baby. Yes, you're very sweet. Thank you. So cute. So when you're in a relationship, and this could be of any kind, one of the most important relationship skills you can have is this ability to come out of your head, notice what's going on in front of you, and respond only to that. Literally, if you did that, you could just change your life. It's that important. And we put, especially girls, put so much emphasis on our auditory abilities and sense that our eyes sometimes aren't even engaged, which is really unfortunate because that's where you're going to get the most information. There are three main senses we use to take in and sort information. We could be visually oriented, we could be auditory, or we could be kinesthetic. That's touch and feel. And interestingly, we respond to the world based on those three things quite differently. So for an example, Scott McFall is with us again today. I'm so excited. Scott happens to be extraordinarily visual in his orientation for the most part as he's taking in information and giving information. I just came into the world quite auditory. So my challenge has, yeah, I know. So my challenge has been to shut off the ears and pay attention to what's in front of us. Our very good friend Heather has this wonderful saying that she says, everything in front of your eyeballs is very good. That's what you need to pay attention to. Everything behind your eyeballs is bad neighborhood. Don't go in the bad neighborhood. So as you are dealing with friends, lovers, husbands, kids, whatever, or dogs, it's really, really important that your observational skills are first and foremost and primary, because that's going to be the thing that gives you the most information. So, hi, welcome back.
Hi.
So good
How
to
are you
see
doing,
you.
Julie?
I'm great.
Good.
So, I know that you have done a lot of work on this topic
A little,
with
yeah.
people, just once in a while, because it's something that really, truly is a game changer when you can get your visual skills up to speed.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. So what would you like to tell us about how being more visually oriented in a relationship is a good idea?
Well, in neurolinguistics, they say that 93% of communication is nonverbal. So only 7% is words. That's an NLP concept that's within the presuppositions kind of work in basic practitioner level neurolinguistics. But we can go further with the presuppositions of NLP for couples. And I think the most important assumption from that discipline for couples is the meaning of your communication is the response you get back.
So let's really talk about what that means.
Sure.
So if I say to you, gee, I really like that shirt. to him, that probably did not sound like a compliment. Now, in fact, I actually love the shirt, of course, but in actual fact, I may have meant it like one or thought I said it in a way that was a compliment. But if the response I get back is, "What's wrong with my shirt?"
Right.
That's not the one I want. If what I was really actually doing was giving a compliment. So anything short of, "Oh, thanks," is not a good communication.
Well, one of the great things about what you just did is that you were incongruent, meaning that what you see on your face does not match what you are saying. And what the other person is going to subconsciously and consciously believe is what they see in your face, your movement, or the quality of your tone and the extraverbals of how you're talking. They are not going to believe
The words. Because notice the words were perfect.
Yeah.
The words themselves were perfect, but all the body language didn't match.
We met one of my friends today, a very good musician and all-around fabulous fellow.
He was.
Steve Alm. And Steve, we talked about that he loved reggae back in the day. And he loved it because of its incongruence, that it's this happy, happy, joyous music. But then if you listen to the lyrics, they're quite bluesy or tragic. And he just loved the up nature of the music. And then the actual lyrics, when you hear through them, it's sort of taking tragedy and putting happy music and major chords, as he talked about it, on, instead of minors and sad chords, And that shows you how the quality of the sound of how you're talking is impacting someone more than the words, right? And music can really demonstrate that with regard to the sound. But truly, when you're not looking at someone, when they're talking, like if you as a kid were afraid to look at somebody that, I had a client once, Julie, who had a parent that was very addicted to several substances. And the parent felt that when a kid was looking at them, that the kid was being disrespectful as opposed to just paying attention. And it was the whole, "Are you eyeballing me? Are you eyeballing me?" And so this person was conditioned over and over and over to not look at. Yeah. So whenever the person got stressed, they looked down. Now they're in a marriage. And every time that things are getting a little worrisome or stressful, well, they're looking down. The problem with this is when the other person is sincerely showing something in their face, making a gaze at them, trying to connect, that connection is going to happen through the looking back and forth and changing their body. Well, this person's just not looking at all and assumes that if I look, it's going to be bad, or if I look, I should feel shame. Well, wow,
A long time ago, Scott asked me in my training, if you had a choice, would you rather be a blind therapist or a deaf one? I thought about that a long time. Because he always is asking trick questions like that. But the answer, of course, is the deaf one. Because with your eyes, you can see 93% of what you need.
Right. And, I hope all your senses stay just fine. But
yes.
I think that when you watch a movie of how couples behave on a first date when they're really attracted, and you see that film, they're not talking like this. "How are you doing? It's good to see you," right? No, they're just like, their pupils are open and they're staring right at each other, And so if you want to connect with somebody and you're doing it moping around, looking at the floor, looking at your phone, only looking at the kids, staring in the kitchen, only looking at what you're cooking, dealing with work, well, you're communicating, you are not in the top 10 priorities of where my attention is right now. Because they're going to believe that your attention is where your eyes are, which is actually true.
True.
Right? So yes, you're needing to take in the outside world and see rather than tell yourself a narrative in your head. And talking to yourself too much as an adult is really kind of a sign that you're too stressed.
Definitely.
Because we call in NLP, talking to yourself in your head auditory digital. It just means the words, the syntax of language in the language center of your brain that you're yammering on, labeling things with.
But you can have that to such an extent that you're talking to yourself so much in your head, you're not paying attention to what's going on outside your head, which could be a real problem.
Right. So the point that you're making, that you need to pay attention outside of yourself and take in the real world, that the map in your head is not the territory outside of your head, that's great. That's true. We can go further. Real thoughts are not done in words. Real thoughts are a movie in your head that's like sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. Your head stores these senses. That's how you take in the outside world. You take it in through your eyes, your ears, your nose, your touch.
A good example of that. So think of the sexiest person you were ever with. Remember that? There aren't words associated with that memory. You're going to remember how they smelled, what they looked like, what they felt like. That is going to be the main thing you remember, not words.
Yes. Think of being on a roller coaster. Whee! Now, when you're on this roller coaster, you're not going, did I leave something on the stove? I wonder why he said that.
Something stuck to my shoe.
Yeah, right. And so this dialogue is what we do inside, learning to memorize the language as we grow up. And so we're talking incessantly, kind of comparing. And of course, this is not real thinking. Now, if Fritz Perls, the father of Gestalt, was right, when he said that most of the difficulty with thinking life is top dog, underdog thinking, I should do this, but I want to do this, but I should do that, but I want to do this. This differential thinking is often done in a narrative. Now, what should happen is you see the alternatives and see the one that's most likely to work, and then hear and feel the way that you feel when you get it done. Whether it's connecting with somebody or doing a work project, the brain in genius structure sees the movie of it, hears the sounds associated with it, and then feels what you feel in your body. It does not chat with you. When I first learned this and got over having to yammer on in my head, I actually thought my brain broke. Because as a kid, I was, and I've said this in a lot of podcasts, but as a kid, I was so stressed out that I was constantly trying to get ahead of things and think through what was coming, and that constant talking to myself in my head. I didn't know that wasn't what everyone was doing.
Let's give them a little context. So Scott was born 3 months premature, spent the first 6 months of his life basically in a bubble in the Mayo Clinic, and had severe difficulties with his heart. He had his first major, all the way around his chest cavity, open heart surgery when he was 11, and has had really chronic problems since then. But being a really compromised little kid, very much like Milton Erickson with his polio, he became a great observer of people. So this idea that he would be in his head and constantly thinking about how to manipulate what little he could at that point was sort of ended up being a great advantage.
It's a good training for being a human behavior change worker. It is. But there's so many people walking around that have never not been anxious.
Right. That's very true.
Because of whatever happened when they were born with health or the stress in the family or whatever. But I think it's important, really important, to get the point across that most of that extreme stress or anxiety is physical. Some of it's circumstantial. It can be. And traumas do happen. But physiological trauma is definitely there. And it happens often before you could even know the language. You're an infant or you're a toddler. And so the way it's being represented when you go to talk therapy or you go to a counselor or someone, it's really not going to cause the catharsis or the processing or the letting go or the reframing of that experience if it's really physical and before that part of you was even formed. Instead, what's going to happen is you're going to rationalize as you get older and blame various things in your life for these feelings that were actually always there, right? Now, that's not true of everyone. Not everyone has birth trauma, But we're going to blame whatever we think it is. And that's the problem in relationships. To bring this back around to relationships, it's the Chicken Little thing. An acorn hits Chicken Little in the head. The sky is falling. The sky is falling. Well, the sky is not falling. We need, in relationships, to be able to get the size of what we think a problem or issue is in proportion, right? But when we're growing up, we want admiration. We want praise. We also get out of being in trouble with self-pity and sympathy. So we are taught as a kid to make the problem bigger because that's going to get us out of the trouble. We are conditioned to have the secondary benefit of having a giant crisis be we're out of trouble.
Or you get more sympathy.
Right. Sympathy is like evil. Empathy is wonderful. Sympathy is more like a drug, and it does very bad things. And it's about I don't know what to call it, the virtue signaling of the giver or something.
Yes.
So we have to know how to make the problem smaller. Make it manageable. See us as above it and able to manage it, whereas most people see these issues they're going through as bigger than they are. You know? Well, if you're in a relationship and you want your mom's approval as an adult who is married more than you want your spouse's approval,
that's bad.
The size of these things is not right.
Yes. And where your attention isn't right either.
And you're using a strategy of a son or a daughter instead of a strategy of a lover or a romance partner or a parent yourself. You're still chasing that, I want to know I'm a good person because this parent agrees with me, approves. Yeah. So that's why, when you're talking about mama's boys dating, this is not like a winner.
Yeah, no, that should be avoided.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
And that's a great segue, actually, into what we want to talk about next.
Okay, great.
So the $64 question is, how do you deal with a woman who's upset?
Women get upset?
I know. Once in a great while. Doesn't happen often, but, just so we cover the topic.
Well, in a previous chat, you and I talked about how attraction strategies work, right? And there are two different kinds of upset. Can we when there might be 20, but for today, let's label
let's just do two. Okay.
Two ways to be upset. Two. So let's say there's legitimate problems that are happening or behavior on the part of the guy that's upsetting her, right? Let's say that content-oriented, something is happening going wrong, right? Then there's the kind of upset that is driven by in anyone, male or female, can be driven by hormones, hypoglycemia, lack of sleep, substance abuse, whatever it is, right? But one of the most important ones to remember is hormonally, as estrogen goes up and down and progesterone goes up and down and all of that, there's a time of testing the relationship, which is a different kind of upset. And so I think that's the one we want to talk about. Legitimately, if someone is upset with you and you want the best skill you can possibly have as a guy, you fall on your sword openly, honestly, and with no defensiveness.
And if you want the best skill for a girl, get the hell out of your feelings and focus on solutions.
Outcomes. But it's hard because you're going to want to share the process out loud to think it through. And that's not necessarily bad in any way, but it is not outcome driven. It's forensic. And so this can have to do with wanting emotional intimacy first. And the way that the person is trying to get it is to share the problem.
But that is only one way. It is not the way, and it's not necessarily the best way.
Right. It's a way.
It is a way.
So what happens in that case, though, is so many times couples scapegoat something in order to feel close, to have esprit de corps, to have a common enemy. So they scapegoat one of the parents of the couple, or they scapegoat one of the kids, or they scapegoat someone at work. And they're doing that to get close because of a common enemy. And so let's try to avoid that. Maybe it's not fully avoidable, but let's try. And for the guy, sincerely, I do not mean anything I'm saying as a tactic. I mean it as a way to feel first and then handle things second. This is not a tactical thing. It is a sincere understanding that you are not a defensive person. You're comfortable being a guy. You like being a guy. You don't think that being a guy is bad. You don't think that you have to feel bad for being a guy and make up for toxic masculinity or something. Instead, you like yourself, you know yourself, you accept yourself, you accept your ordinariness as a person. Stuart Emery said we're all ordinary, but a master accepts his ordinariness.
That's right.
And uses it as a platform to do amazing things. Well, as a guy, step one is like yourself.
But we have so many messages that say don't. Toxic masculinity, beta males are it.
Look, somebody told me there was a big guy in a red suit that brought toys, and then there was a person that took my teeth out from under pillows. There's a lot of things you hear that are just, what's the word?
Bullshit.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so let's look at it and say, first of all, if you're defensive because you're worried about being to blame as a guy, that's going to look really not good. And it's going to make her think she has to do your part and her part because you're squishy around your own self-acceptance. And you'll think you're being nice. You'll think you're helping.
Yes.
You'll think you're doing something sweet. But what's really happening is it's like she has to be both wheels on the bicycle and you don't even know it. And the thing is that's awful because she doesn't like it.
No, we do not want to be both wheels on the bicycle.
And yet it also builds pride because she's able to handle it and does great. So it's like a trap for both of you.
Yep.
So the first thing to recognize is when she's testing you and she, all of a sudden you've put the laundry in one spot that you thought was okay next to a spot, but it really needs to be all of a sudden magically exactly in the hamper a certain way or whatever it is, right? And you're like, but I had this and this and this and this, and that pair of socks was not my primary objective in this moment, So, but the thing is that as this happens, you need to just be like, it's a piece of cake. Like one of the coolest models for being a guy is Wesley in
Princess
The Princess Bride. As you wish. And
As you
whatever
wish.
it is, it's nothing. As the game goes on, Wesley's not going, oh my God, I got to get the ladder out and then I got to climb up and get the damn pitcher. Son, he's not doing that. He's just, yeah, whatever, no sweat, because he is safe in himself and he is not freaking out and he's not belittled by what's happening.
Composure.
Yeah, he is solid as a rock.
Yeah.
And, Carrie Eloise played that part so well. It's just, just love that guy, And, it's not just there, it's also later in the film. And it's just brilliant in every possible way. And them going into the fire swamp.
Oh, love that part.
Yeah.
We can't go in the fire swamp. Nobody's come out of the fire swamp.
Yeah. You're
Nonsense.
only saying that because no one ever has. Yeah.
Right.
And it's brilliant. And the reason it's brilliant isn't because the woman in that show isn't amazing or strong or awesome or terrific, because she is. And that actress played a lot of things. I mean, remember her in Forrest Gump. I mean, I think she's
she was
brilliant.
great.
But when you look at that model of him, it doesn't matter if that woman is a surgeon. It doesn't matter if she's an engineer. It doesn't matter if she's running a Fortune 500 company. It doesn't matter if she's a fighter pilot. If she chose to be in that situation with you as a guy, she does not want to do your side of the thing. Even on the days she thinks she does. And so you standing up and filling your spot, you're taking your space. You're taking your space.
Claiming your space.
Claiming your space and who you are and what you're doing is a big part of this. Just being there, being that person. Not needing the approval so much that you're needy of that female approval and dynamic to the point where you have no, I don't know, backbone. You need to know that you are supposed to be there.
Right. And let's make this point too, and I'm sure you'd agree. I personally believe that wanting to make the girl happy and be supportive and all that is in your DNA. I don't think there's anything you can do about it, and it's a beautiful thing. The problem is when you need to do that, because whatever we need owns us, whatever it is, and we will make changes in our behavior and our thinking and our decisions to accommodate the need.
Yeah, and that's what trauma bonding is all about, is that trauma that happens where the person now is terrified, I had so much abandonment stuff because of my premature birth and, trauma in medical stuff. And it creates its own
momentum.
Yeah, I don't know even what to call it, haunted anxiety or something, But when a guy is in that situation, you just need to understand that you're supposed to be there. You're playing the part you're supposed to play. And as things go up and down and you handle things well or not well, there's one other thing that has to be true, which
What's
is
that?
you can't be a boy, you have to be a man.
Yeah.
A boy likes to get away with things. A boy is accidentally turning the spouse into another parent.
And also more self-centered.
Right. So what happens is you feel a sense of guilt if you're doing a boy strategy in a relationship that's a committed relationship. You feel a sense of, if I was found out, it's like imposter syndrome. It's like if nobody would like me if they really knew me, you know. So if that sense of guilt goes away, then you can stand there in this moment when this woman is upset, and you can care about the thing that she's talking about without feeling accused or shame. You're just there.
Well, can we talk about the elephant in the room, which is, why the hell do women get so freaking upset all the time anyway? What's the deal?
Well, you'll notice they don't get as upset when they're first dating and they're in their attraction strategy. It's after a commitment when this happens, where it's like testing the environment for whether or not it's a safe place. And this happens as, ovulation and hormone changes happen. There's a time period in there that's very irritated, and maybe it's when they're going a little testosterone high or their estrogen's dropping. I've recently in my life seen someone who's having a progesterone sensitivity issue. It's very interesting to see what that does. So there's a standard real change in behavior as these hormones shift. And it's interesting because there have been studies done. Recently, there was a great video done by Jordan Peterson, from up in Canada, who's ubiquitous at this point. But he was talking about how as women are checked for which man they find attractive or who they find attractive, the jawline of what they're attracted to changes as they change the time of their hormone cycle.
And specifically what he's referring to is the woman would be shown the picture of the same guy, just enhanced either to have sort of a softer jawline or a more squared masculine jawline, but it was the same guy. And depending on where they were in their cycle, especially if they were estrogen high, they continually picked the more beta-looking male.
They picked the soft-looking one when they're estrogen high, and they picked the more masculine one when they were ovulating. That's right. And so he's done a few videos on that, but there's a bunch of studies now that show various changes in preference, changes and how the feelings shift. And so when this comes up, the question is, are you really man enough to be with?
That's what we're trying to find out, girls.
And the thing is that the way it works is, no, you're not. And so the question is, can you stand there and look
pretend.
at and look at the person, and she's looking at you, and this person who was like, she looked at you and you could see the stars and the moon, and she loved you and it was great, and you would climb the highest mountain, you would do anything, you'd be Dustin Hoffman at the end of The Graduate, pounding on the window to get her back, and all of a sudden you're in this moment, and this woman is looking at you like, why am I even with it? I mean, and you're looking in the mirror. Do I have something on my face? I mean, what's wrong? And it's soul crushing in that moment when you haven't been taught that this is going to happen and that it's normal, because you're like,
I thought you loved me.
Yeah, it's literally like you're Caesar, and Brutus.
A2.
Yeah. So you're in that moment, and the secret to it really is that men need to be taught this is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And when it happens, they need to be taught to be okay. Just be okay. They should care what this person thinks or feels. They should respect this person. But you have to be able to be in that moment and be okay. It can't shock you that there's spring, summer, winter, and fall.
All in the same month.
Yeah. And that you need a coat sometimes, and sometimes you get to wear shorts. But that's how it is. And the reason that that's so important is to be a manned-up guy, a self-accepting guy, and not go into self-pity because you're hurt. You have to have the empathy and the stability to realize what you're going through and what that other person happened to be going through, they're not the same thing. And that has to be okay. And so a guy needs to understand what's going to happen when that person that he's in a relationship with goes through menopause. Has to understand what happens when pregnancy takes place. And he can't be walking around thinking it's just going to be the same.
Yeah, that would be a mistake.
So that's why, we don't deal with things like classifications from psych in NLP or hypnosis. I'm not a psych person. I'm an NLP and hypnosis kind of trainer. And I work on perception more than these other things. But a narcissist, they say, is a person who needs admiration.
Mm-hmm.
They also need sympathy. Sympathy in them works a lot like the narcissistic supply of admiration. So there's these wicked artificial highs and lows, right? And so what happens is that when the attention of this girl, if she's with a guy who's actually narcissistic, goes a different direction, that guy is going to lose it. And nowadays they accuse everyone of narcissism.
Honest to goodness, 7 out of every 10 female that comes in my office starts off by explaining what a narcissist her boyfriend or husband is.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Don't go on the internet and Google this stuff. I'm telling you.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy. But the thing that I'm trying to get across is, as a man, you can't trigger fear of abandonment when this shifts. You have to sit there and go,
it's normal.
This is part of loving someone.
Yep.
This is part of accepting someone. This is part of loving this individual. And she is having an experience that I will never have.
Be very glad of that.
Well, there's plenty of really shitty things on this side too, but it's not that. So the thing that I think is the hard part is, I want to be her hero, is that guy's thinking. I want to matter.
Oh, yeah.
And there's nothing he can do about it other than being okay.
Some things can't be fixed.
Yeah. Being okay, being just all right is the actual answer. It's not going overboard. It's not going into self-pity. It's just being okay. And so it's really difficult to teach that. What should I do? Just stand there.
But what should I say?
Don't
just
talk.
Stand there.
Just be there, and just care, but don't accidentally get sucked into solving the problem too early,
Right.
or you will make a mistake, because it's not as simple as the conversation. It's the conversation plus how she wants to feel about you.
And since we started off talking about dogs, I'll use another analogy. I've spent a lot of time rescuing highly anxious dogs. That became kind of our specialty. And I can tell you for sure, one of the things you do with a very, very anxious dog is, and I've literally gotten down on the floor and you just be there. You let your energy talk for you. Talking makes it worse. If they're already anxious and amped up, talking makes it worse. Even if you're talking calmly and softly, no talk is better. And you watch very, very carefully for the subtle shifts in their body and in their breathing and in their eye gestures and movements to know when you can maybe get a little closer or when you need to pull back a little bit. But it's very much, I'll call it similar.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot like when we were training horses, when we made the therapists round pen horses before we let them work with people, and we'd make them watch the body language to round pen the horses and learn how to do that, and then go in and not talk, just work with the nonverbals long enough to realize you could actually get more done if you didn't talk with the people too. Mm-hmm. And a guy needs to feel safe, and he needs to feel safe in such a way that it helps everyone else in a household or in his life feel safe.
That's right.
Nobody should be wandering around wanting to be the nervous captain of the ship. Nobody wants Fred, the stressed out captain,
Or Barney Fife.
Yeah. Yeah, Barney Fife with his one bullet.
One bullet in his pocket. As compared to, and Chase Hughes made that point in some of his quite brilliant work. The beauty of that little Andy of Mayberry sitcom was that Andy, Sheriff Taylor, was the epitome of composed.
Yes.
Epitome. No matter what was going on, he was totally composed, as you said, calm, often didn't say a whole lot, but it was sort of the Rock of Gibraltar. And Don Knotts, of course, being the Barney Fife person, nervous, couldn't stand still for 5 seconds, and everything was a panic. And the other side of that, the other side of composure, according to Chase, is the posturing. So the, buffing
Overdoing
up.
it.
Oh, way overdoing it. Yeah, posturing. So the calm, centered, composed in the middle is the bomb.
Yes, it is. And I brought up a lot of hormone stuff in this conversation, and you're talking about that centered, grounded male behavior.
Great
thing.
energy.
Yeah.
Great energy.
And, people can be themselves. They can have their own thing, but we're talking about whether or not we get leveraged into stress when someone else really needs us to not be leveraged into stress. And I'm now older, and I take a hormone supplement, right? And that hormone supplement is, testosterone injection and DIM that helps to balance it out and all that sort of thing. And you learn a lot about your brain and your endocrine system when you're on hormone replacement. You learn a lot. And I wish I knew all of that when I was 15.
Well, fortunately, it'll be in our book.
Yeah, well, that's right. And I really do want to get that point across, though. There's so many times that people think they're watching a woman be stressed or a woman be nervous. And what you and I have learned in our practice over the years is sometimes they really need to be referred back to an MD.
That's true.
Because what's happening is, like we've recently had a friend with Cushing syndrome, where there was a cortisol-producing tumor that was making the insulin go sideways and some other things. And that had to be corrected because the stress wasn't a different thing. It was medical. And I think that some of the follow-up there, I'm sure you have a great network of the people that you refer to and so on, but some of the medical follow-up for stress is also very important. And so how do you tell when you're a guy, when you're in a relationship, hey, this is just the normal ups and downs, and this is how this relationship gets tested?
She'll have sex with you.
Yeah, it's still working. Yeah, right. Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's pretty true. But then there's also, when do you say, hey, this needs to get checked out? And that's one of the weirdest, hardest conversations men and women ever have. Because how do you say to somebody, I think you need a blood draw? Because they're like, I don't need a blood draw. I'm right about this.
And throw a urinalysis in there too while you're at it.
Yeah. And how do you, it's a whole different level of, calm down. Calm down.
What
I'm
do
not
you
going
mean?
to. Yeah. So, but if this is so difficult, and that's why both men and women need to take such great responsibility for their own care.
There's a concept.
And their own self healing and having their right medical professions and medical professionals and that sort of thing.
Who do you think takes better care of themselves in general, men or women?
Women. By far. Yeah. However, I do not always believe that the conversations they have with their medical professionals match what actually is happening. Like, I think they do a great job of doing things that are to take care of themselves. I'm not sure that if somebody has an issue with cortisol or has an issue with insulin, when they're upset, when their insulin is causing, let's say, diabetic rage, I think they believe that the cause of that rage usually is the stuff going on around them.
Their husband,
Yeah. I don't think they think it's that they're having a problem with hormones. So I think that my experience has been that women who have great screening gynecologists or great screening hormone folks and great screening GPs are on top of this in the first place, and it's kind of handled beautifully.
Well, it's kind of surprising how people wouldn't think of hormones. There's such a huge influence biochemically that wouldn't be your first thought.
Yeah.
That it's a hormone, not your husband.
Yeah. Well, I went to look up behavioral endocrinologist, and there is such a thing. And I've never met one. I would like to interview one on my podcast.
You'd like to be one.
I'd like to be one. Actually,
I know you.
If I could go back and do it over, that's what I would do. Because really seeing how often it's not neurotransmitters, but rather it's endocrinology. And you can't get into an endocrinologist to save your life down here. They're backed up forever,
True.
So what do you do? And just know that when people are going through stuff, it's always good to change physiology first. And when you're a guy and you're in a situation, if you blow up problems, if you make them bigger, you're never going to know when there's a real issue or when it's just a normal day, when all you need to do is be there or be okay. But there are real issues that come up. How do you know the difference? And that's one of the most important reasons that in a couple, you don't want to cry wolf. You don't want to make problems bigger than they are. Because if there is a real one, and young couples need to know that, real problems do come up.
Oh, they do.
How do you know the difference?
Well, possibly a very interesting next podcast.
Cool.
So thank you very much for coming today. This was really nice. Really good. Good info. And as usual, we'll be back next time.